can you explain to them, I know, but can you explain to them how you came into running a music festival? And you told me a story about when you moved here and you felt there was nothing here. You felt like it was kind of absent of creativity and art. Can you tell them a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I guess what led us here today, what led me to downtown Las Vegas, what led me to this moment where we're involved. Life's Beautiful, and now Life's Beautiful now I think has a long-term, very sustainable future to do amazing things for the city. I was here in 1999, like I said, got recruited to play football by a man named John Robinson. Incredible human being, great coach. Got me to come out to the desert from Southern California. When I got here, I think my recruiting trip was in the spring, and then I get here in the middle of summer, and it's very, very hot, and it's not conducive to football by any stretch of the imagination. And I kind of, I liked football, I liked the environment, I liked the team, I loved the coach, but at the city didn't really seem to have much to offer me then. There was no real arts, there was no real culture, there was no real community, you didn't know your neighbors, there was no real college scene, there was nothing that made me really want to stay here. I was from the East Coast originally, where I knew all my neighbors and the food was amazing, the people were amazing, and then I went to high school in Southern California where the beaches and the weather was always perfect. Like, get me back to either one of those two things, what am I doing in the middle of the desert? So after college, I started doing some events and some things in college, and after college I was like, well, you know what, I can go back to New York City, or I can go back to LA, and I could do these things on a higher scale there, and I could have all the things I liked about those cities, and get out of the desert. And doing that, and going just to see friends, I noticed a lot of my friends in Southern California sitting on the same beaches, I can say it now because it's legal, smoking the same pot, going to the same high school parties, and I was like, there just wasn't a drive and ambition, or you had to have a barrier of entry, you had to know somebody, you had to do something if you want to do something of substance in that city. Same thing with New York, it was a corporate ladder, or you had to know somebody. Here in this city, what I recognized right away was that you could be accountable, you could be dependable, just show up when you said you're going to show up, and you could be wildly successful, because there wasn't a lot of that in this city at that time. So, long story short, I was working in nightlife, doing events. We started a small printing company. It was really just a brokerage. It was meant to, make us a couple $100 a week extra by sending, no one could get flyers printed at the time. You got to imagine this is pre-Instagram and social media, or even like MailChimp. We didn't have like email databases, and when we were doing events, the only way we were really communicating with people was printing flyers and distributing them around the city. There was no printer in town, so we'd send them to Florida to get printed. They put them on a plane, on a Delta plane, and then they'd fly them out, and I would get some guy on the other line that would say, oh yeah, it's on the plane, don't worry. And it wasn't even done, it wasn't done printing yet. And then I'd go to the airport and come back, and it was a nightmare to do it. So I said, if I'm going to do that, I'll do it as a service for other people as well. So my partner, Ryan Doherty, and I started just kind of a brokerage service where we would take all the orders, put them together just to make it easier for our friends, essentially. There was a moment where, at the time, I think George Maloof was dating Britney Spears. It was her birthday, and he needed a birthday invite for her. And our friend Leslie Culler, who's a graphic artist from the Palms at the time, called us. She goes, money's not an issue. We need that flyer, and we need it tomorrow. I'm like, I can't get it from Florida tomorrow. So I get out the Yellow Pages, literally the Yellow Pages, flip through the Yellow Pages and find a print shop that was down on, just over on Highland over here. And I walk in, and there's clean floors and beautiful machinery. I was like, what's going on here? Why aren't you guys printing anything? He goes, well, we really just don't have the business. And I'm like, I'm sending a ton of business out here to get done. Long story short, we ended up getting the flyer, printing it overnight, and I was like, aha. And there was a moment there where we knew we can do something in that business. That was kind of our first step into, like, we were just kind of like a two-person show. Then all of a sudden we needed to hire people, so I flew my brother and his wife out, and they were our first employees, and then it kind of like grew this family business. What we realized very quickly was that we were the first people in town then to know everything that was going on, because if you booked something for an event, the first thing you did was do your creative, send the flyer to print. So we were literally the first people to know everything that was happening. So we said, how do we take that all, put it together in a way that is more easily digestible for people, i.e. a magazine, so let's start a magazine. So we started a magazine called 944. We partnered with a group out of Phoenix that wanted to come to Vegas and launch a magazine. We basically just had a conversation with them and said we know more about the people of Las Vegas, and that's and the politics of it, which is a very challenging thing. You might know a little bit more about making a magazine, but we own a printing company and I have graphic designers. I'll figure it out. Maybe we should just partner. So we did. We launched 9 for 4. It was pretty immediately successful. We were able to then launch that in 14 cities around the country. When we did that, we had a lot of our clients come to us then and say, can you guys do a weekly? We don't want to have only one weekly in town, right? There's a leverage problem there. So we said no, because it was going to be way, way, way too much work. We were making ourselves crazy doing it every month. How can we do that every week? Long story short, we figured it out. Launched Vegas 7. I think that was 7 or 8 years ago. And at that point, we realized that we then had a tremendous impact on the community, the ability to have a tremendous impact on the community and create the things that originally I did not want to stay in Vegas because they did not exist, right? A couple years, so right after that I started doing a lot with, I went back to UNLV. I'm not at a point where I could write them some $1 million check to name a building after me or anything like that, but what we could do is help their athletic program in marketing and storytelling and helping the student athlete experience. So we started doing a lot more of that. That was another aha moment for me, where we spent a ton of time, effort, energy, and resources that we just kept putting into. It was UNLV basketball, then it was women's soccer, then it was every other sport that we went through there, and we started seeing a result and what that meant to the student athlete. And I became addicted to seeing that look on a kid's face when you ran into a stadium for the first time, like I did, as a 19 or 18-year-old. Seeing like a sold-out stadium or sold-out arena, I was like, how can we do more of that, and how does that tie in the community in a way that when you're walking down the street, when you're in New York City, you could be black, white, gay, straight, from anywhere. You have a Yankee hat on when the Yankees are in the playoffs. It's like, what's up? You know what I mean? Like there's a community around those things, and we didn't have that, right? The Rebel basketball team wasn't very good at the time, so we were able to build that up, and I saw that, we became addicted to it. It wasn't something that showed up on a P&L. It wasn't something that showed up on a balance sheet. It was something that just like made you feel very, very good doing it. So we became very addicted to that. Fast forward a couple of years, and we heard about. I knew Tony Shea probably pretty casually. Would see him here and there, kind of around town, but didn't really know him very well. And heard this crazy story over a drink one night, how they went to $350 million in downtown Las Vegas and revitalized things and everything else. And I was like, wow, that is incredible, right? Because that is now going to help the creative community. That's going to help us find, if we move writers and graphic designers and people into town, it's going to be something that people could really attach themselves to, that would drive them, that they'd be entertained by. We want to support that in some way. We didn't want to take away from the fund, right? We want to contribute to it. We certainly don't have anything close to being able to contribute those sort of funds. So we said, what's the best thing we could do? Let's move our offices downtown. So at the time, I think we had 230 employees and 18,000 square feet. It was going to be very expensive to move the office building downtown. We're self-funded. We've never taken investment. It literally would have been like maxing out credit cards. How do you make the money back? There was all these calculations going in our head. So we said, what about opening a bar? That could be an extension of our conference room, because we know we have the database and everything else that we could push people to a place. So we opened Commonwealth on 6th and Fremont. What we did is just reach out to a bunch of friends that had different businesses around town and say, hey, let's all chip in a little bit of money. Open a place called Commonwealth, name it like Commonwealth for the greater good of the community. At the same time, we're like, well, if we're going to open one, we'll open one across the street. I'll say that was very, very, very much the work of my business partner, Ryan. I told him he was crazy. Full disclosure, I said, there's no way. This thing's I don't know if you guys remember it, but it was an old video store, like an adult video store. There was no rooftop, there was no anything else. So he had the vision to really build that and make that something that can happen. So when we did that, we immediately saw that we were able to have, people want to come check out Commonwealth, but they didn't necessarily want to park 2 blocks away because it wasn't very safe to walk around that area. So around the same time, a friend of ours came to us and said he wanted to do, I know it's a very long-winded story.
No, this is great. No, this is wonderful.
A friend of ours came to us and said he wanted to leave his job. He's an entertainment booker at a casino, and he wanted to do something more in the festival space. And we had started a conversation, and the creative services of our company helped him create a deck that ends up being Life is Beautiful. They go and they do Life is, we stay on as a media partner and support the festival in the first 2 years from a media aspect, doing all the creative, doing the posters, doing a lot of those things, the websites and things like that. After the second year, I think it's pretty well known. The festival was struggling from a financial standpoint because it didn't have the infrastructure to be able to do what it needs to do over the course of the year for one event. Over the course of the year, we had infrastructure, we had the ability, and more than anything, I didn't want to see it go away because I knew what it could be for the city. I knew what it would drive for the city. So after the second year, we made a deal to acquire the festival. I became CEO of the festival, and we've grown it from 87,000 people in year 2 to I think it was like 130,000 the next year. To this year, we did 180,000 people over 3 days, sold out in 90 minutes. So for us, it kind of goes full circle into not the economics of it or any of those things from a standpoint of how you run a business, but for what it means to a contribution to the community, right? And it's given us a platform. Every step along the way, we've had a platform to be able to contribute back to the community. And now, I live in Southern Highlands because our office used to be over there. And 2 years ago now, I moved downtown. And I just love living down here because I walk everywhere. I actually drove here today because I live over in the Ogden. And it was weird to get in the car because I walked to the office, and now our offices are downtown. So it's just been really, really rewarding up to this point to see it all kind of come together in what was essentially an initial vision 15 years ago.
Great. Something that inspired me about you is you managed to stay positive about a lot of negative things that happened to the festival, to the office, stuff like that. How do you manage to stay positive in the light of all this negativity?
I don't know. I think that's always just been kind of an outlook of mine. I don't like negativity. I don't like. We see it sometimes, and even with some of the things that happened, we were posting stories about, what people could do to help, and they were far and away our, and I'm speaking of stuff that happened on October 1st, tragedy. There are things that, get more traffic than anything in the world, which is why you see CNN just literally pounding it everywhere else. Like, that is instant traffic. It's 6 times the traffic of some of the positive stories that we would post. But I see the other side of it too, where after Charlottesville happened, we had posted a clip of J. Cole on stage the year before. I don't know how many of you guys were at Life is Beautiful this year? Last year? Okay, so for that J. Cole show, I don't know if you remember, but he finished his show different than he finished any show on that tour. He was at a festival called Life is Beautiful, and he very much, the idea of calling it Life is Beautiful is that you're saying Life is Beautiful however many times throughout the course of the year. Did you get your ticket to Life is Beautiful? Have you seen the Life is Beautiful lineup? Or are you going to Life is Beautiful? What actually going to see Life is Beautiful? Just the fact that you're saying the words Life is Beautiful is very much part of the vision. So when an artist gets there, it's somewhat the same thing for him. So the last song that said, he goes, I have the song, I haven't played it live. I had this vision when I was in the studio, I was doing it. It was kind of a throwaway song, but we did it, and we just kind of went. I had this vision when we did it. I need you guys to help me out for a second. I need you guys to take your arm and put it over the shoulder of the person next to you. Everyone does it. He goes, look, that took 2 seconds, or that took 10 seconds. He goes, cameraman, get a shot of this. This is the shit you don't see on TV. And he says, I see black, I see white, I see gay, I see straight, I see Puerto Rican, I see Muslim, I see Christian, everything. Cameraman, come get a shot of this, because this is the shit you don't see on TV, and this is the shit people need to see today. And then he finished the song, and it was a very melodic, slow, chill song, not like a club banger to close the festival. We posted that video after Charlottesville, and the reaction that we got from that, like we post from a place of just authenticity. Like, it's not, we don't sit in a room and go like, well, what will get page views and what will get clicks? Like, just from a place of authenticity and knowing like what that message meant to us at that time, standing there watching it and remembering that, and like, why isn't there more of that in the world? Why isn't that the conversation that's leading things? Why is this the conversation that's leading things when everything you would see on CNN? So when we did, we saw just a ton of feedback and reaction to that. So I think, I don't know, for me personally, I think I've always sometimes almost been too positive, and had too positive an outlook, and it's burned me a couple times, but it's not something I really want to waver on. And I think, better than anyone, it kind of echoes through our company now.
Yeah, it's great. It's great when the team's down. Justin seems to be like, it's okay, everything's fine. We're like, okay.
That's also my job.
We're following you. We're right behind you. I felt this, and I'm sure a lot of creatives feel the same way downtown and in Vegas in general. Like a lack of inspiration, like going through life and being like, I don't know what's going on here. I don't think I can do this. I don't know if I want to stay here in Vegas. Or like, how have you managed to? And we talked a little about this, but how do you manage to stay here and just be like, it's gonna happen. Vegas is gonna explode as this artistic place. How do you hold on to that?
I mean, I think I'm driven by what the opportunity is to do that here, right? Like you look at a lot of things, we have, massive issues with education. Obviously, healthcare is all over the place with everything going on with healthcare. With the city and how we support creators, and how we support the arts and music, the music industry in Vegas. Like there's such an opportunity to make such a change that is something that, I mean, I wake up an hour before my alarm goes off because there's so much that can be done. There's so much positive output that can happen from it. So in that way, it's super exciting, and there's two ways to look at it, and it kind of almost goes back to the CNN J. Cole example. Like, you can look around and be like, oh, dark and dreary and things aren't great and whatever, or you could turn around and say like, well, maybe that's an opportunity to go create more change. So yeah, I would probably think that's the most that drives me. I think it's also the people you surround yourself with, is super, super important. I think Ray Dalio has a book that just came out, but he published something a while before. Ray Dalio is a hedge fund manager. I think he's like the 4th biggest hedge fund in the world, and he wrote a book based on his success called Principles, and it was just the principles that led him to success. And one of his first things that he really goes into is his success, and to the tunes of hundreds of billions of dollars, has been a derivative of really just focusing on meaningful work and meaningful relationships, working with people that you care about. It's funny talking to you about it because we're in the office every day, and I think we have a lot of fun around there. We all care about each other. It's a very tight-knit team. That's part of it too. If we were all going to the office and just didn't like each other, I don't think anyone's
It would be conducive for creativity.
Right. It wouldn't be conducive for creativity. We wouldn't be positive about it. We wouldn't be excited about it. We wouldn't be looking at it with optimism, going, "Oh my gosh, we can change things." And Life is Beautiful was. So you guys know, and I take zero credit for this, but Adam and the team we have there are completely they blow me away. You would think that when I took over the festival, I thought it would be somewhat of it's almost hard to kind of check your ego with those things. All of a sudden now you're standing in the middle and you're the guy that's responsible for 150,000 people and all these artists and all this stuff that's happening and the music business and everything else. And you would think that would fuel an ego that's almost uncontrollable. It's actually been, from day one for me, the exact opposite, because you look at people that that Adam works way harder than me, first off.
That's not true. I just make jokes.
Yeah, you make good jokes. And this team, there's people that come in that have literally forgotten more about this business than I'll ever know. Experts that, those stages, you think about it from a standpoint of, us versus a Coachella. Coachella is in that fairground for a month or so beforehand, and they're able to go in there and build those stages and take their time and set up fence lines and all that. We're shutting things down and doing it within a week, right? And these teams are showing up like it's nothing. Here you go, you need stage, is that right? I'm like, all right, you guys got it, we're good, so.
18 city blocks shut down in 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Less than 2 weeks. It's kind of an insane process how there's 40 people come in and just shut down street, stage, and it's just it all goes up and you're kind of just blown away by it.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it's just completely humbling because there's so many people that work so hard to make it happen. So going back to the meaningful relationships, you do things like that. It's the closest thing. It's funny because 2 things have happened. The first year that I was involved, so 2015, it was really hot, especially during the setup. And I felt like I was back in football camp. I felt like I was running around the festival footprint, picking people up off the ground, no, come on, let's go, one more play. We gotta get through this. And then every year, there's this weird quiet moment where I'm kind of walking through the streets just before we open gates, and it's eerily quiet with maybe a couple people still hanging last touches and banners, or an artist finishing up a mural. And it feels like you're walking in the stadium again, beforehand. There's just this whole team mentality around it that is really, really, really special.
You nailed that feeling, because I don't think a lot of people understand that. They go for the 3 days, it's one party, but there's hundreds of people that all work on the festival that are there for the month before or whatever, just working on it, and it's kind of that stadium feel, right before it opens, you're just here we go, all right, let's do it, and then people come and have a good time and really have life experiences that they'll never forget. And that's one of the coolest things about Life's Beautiful to me. one of the things I wanted to ask you, and I lost my notes because I was talking about that. Let's talk about death, because that's the theme. Like, we're all gonna die. Like, we've talked about this before. Like, what do you do with your life? Because you don't think about death, think about life. Like, what do you do with your life to make it the fullest?
I mean,
It's okay.
that's tough, right? We just talked about meaningful relationships, and I think, there's an equation that you could really look at for life, and essentially you start with like a lifetime looking back, right? And this is just, this is something that I've shared with friends and we've worked through and some of the mental model that I live by. So I don't mean to preach it, but I think it's all about at the end of your life, when you're sitting on a deathbed or whatever's happening, you're having that moment, like, you're looking back at your life and what made your life meaningful, right? And to me, there's a very simple equation that's just big dreams, meaningful achievements, right? So you've got to dream big and you got to have like meaningful achievements and things that you're doing that like drive you, but it's always going to be divided by regrets, right? So if you live your life in a way that you go, let's just create a framework to minimize regrets. Jeff Bezos I just saw Jeff Bezos speak at a thing in Los Angeles, and he talked about that as well, where he was, had a really, really good job in New York, making a lot of money, I think it was a hedge fund or something like that, fund analysis. And he's like, I want to go sell books online. And like, his boss was like, you're gonna what? You're gonna sell books online? And you're gonna quit this job to sell books online? And it took 3 days and went with his wife, and he came back and he goes, you know what? If I don't do it, I'll regret it. And I want to optimize my life for like just eliminating regrets. So if that's it, and you just understand that like, whatever great things in your life are always going to be cut in half by the amount of regrets you have at the very minimum, then I think you can optimize for a sense of satisfaction when you're looking back at what you've accomplished in your life.
Right. So you know this, and everyone knows this. Like, Vegas is it's a desert. It is a desert in the sense of creativity as well, where there's little oases of art and culture and like this awesome theater. In a perfect world, what would you want people to do to really help make this a forest instead of a desert? Like, what should everyone do, go home and do right now? Like, can everyone work together to accomplish?
Man, I just, I think, I don't want to harp on, it shouldn't even be part of the answer to that question, but one thing that we learned on October 1st was the way that people came together in this community and what can happen when people come together, people start collaborating, people start working together and sharing ideas, right? We had called, I called a friend of mine that's CEO of Dignity Health, and the day after, like, what can we do? He's like, honestly, keep people away. He's like, we've had more people show up to get blood, like blood banks are full. Like the more you do to keep people away, the more efficient things are going to be. I think the GoFundMe account was at like $8.6 million in like 2 days. Like, we have the people here, we have a spirit of this community that can come together and create anything. So to think that we're sitting here going like, oh, well, I don't know, we can't really create this for art, or we can't do this for artists, we can't do this for creatives. Like, the people are here, and I'm someone that wants to help contribute to that and help build that in a very big way. I think it's about kind of coming together and sharing ideas and just being more vocal about them and being positive about it and sharing positive thoughts, not the negative, and just kind of changing that perspective, right? Changing the lens in which you view the world. Because if you change that lens and you change in your dialogue, then I think you're also going to start changing the output.
Great. Can I read the quote that you sent me?
Sure.
Okay. So Justin sent me this quote. I thought it was really cool, and I'd like you to elaborate on it, how you feel about it. Look back in the memory and consider when you ever had a fixed plan, how few days have passed as you had intended, when you were ever at your own disposal, when your face ever wore its natural expression, when your mind was ever unperturbed, what work you have achieved in so long a life. How many have robbed you of life you were not aware of what you were losing? How much was taken up in useless sorrow, and foolish joy, and greedy desire, and the allurements of society? How little of yourself was left to you?
It's a good quote. It's not mine.
I know, sorry, sorry, it's not Justin's quote, but what, like,
I was kidding. So that's Seneca. There's a lot of his essays that are pretty readily available in volumes. That one, for some reason, is left out of every other volume. I think there was some publishing rights or something like that around it, but it's on the shortness of life. So I read it a while ago and made some notes on it, and then in preparation for this, I think after you and I talked and knowing what the theme this was, I had just kind of glanced over my notes, And in doing so, I mean, that stood out to me, obviously. And then I grabbed out of a flight right after this, actually, and I grabbed it to read on the plane later today, just to kind of read the whole thing. It's 50 pages. It's amazing. I would absolutely get it. I'll tell you what, if anyone wants to email me, it's justin@lifeisbeautiful.com. Email me your info. It's literally $2, so I'll buy it for anyone in here that wants it. You can come out and pick it up. It's that meaningful.
Well, thank you very much, Justin. Give Justin a round of applause, please. We're going to open it up for Q&A. I'm going to ask the first question. We've not been asking questions all day, all morning.
This whole thing's
This whole thing is basically Q&A, but we're going to let other people talk right after this question. So, print just, sorry, I don't work in that department, but you just recently stopped the printing of the magazine. Can you tell people, like, what's the next step after shutting something down and opening up other avenues of creativity? Like, how do you shift your energy towards something else?
Yeah, it's tough. We don't look at it like we shut down print. Part of the model from the very beginning, like everyone in this room knows that digital is taking over more and more, and there's better mediums and ways to do things. So we looked at it, and it was a very, very simple thing for us. We have an incredible, and talented team of very, very good content creators, and that's videographers and writers and creatives. And we've grown to the point that we have far more people we have 650,000 people going to the website a week. We used to print 65,000 copies of Vegas 7. Look at the two of those things, like if we were to reinvest the money that we're spending in print back in the digital, that gives us a bigger audience on that side of things. That's doing better service to those amazing creatives, because we don't need to just pigeonhole ourselves as just being this local thing, right? We're creating great content out of here. Part of what we can do to change the perspective is thinking of part of the mission of Personal Life is Beautiful is to take the things that are happening here to a national scope, right? A national scale. So people are talking about what's happening downtown on a national scale, the way that they started talking about Brooklyn when Vice Magazine was doing things there. Vice Magazine wasn't all about Vice Magazine, wasn't all about Brooklyn. It was about the things that were happening in Brooklyn that pertain to the rest of the world, style, culture, art, things like that. So we wanted to take Life is Beautiful, or we will take Life is Beautiful in a direction that is more of a content piece, right? So people are seeing that, they go to the website, they're seeing inspirational content, the sort of stuff that we're talking about, kind of the antidote to mainstream news right now. Filled with art and hope and inspiration. So it's all been calculated to get there, and like anything else, I mean, you got to be willing to take risks. You got to take chances. And it was very comfortable printing Vegas 7 for a long time, and part of the decision to do it was also to intentionally disrupt that comfort.
Bittersweet.
It's bittersweet because there is some emotional attachment to seeing that printed publication slapped on my desk every week. But to intentionally, purposely disrupt things so that it creates new opportunities within it, it's a risk at times, but I think it's worked out pretty well.
Cool.